moving right along. In 1965, production of the Gloria Cubana brand was reinstated at the Partagas factory. Once again, after Cuba Tobacco, what is now, of course, Tabacuba, not Tacuba, took over the tobacco industry in 1962. When that happened, 25 brands remained in production. Of course, although that number is very similar to the 27 or so, magic number 27 we have today, many of these brands are very, very different. The structure, the layout, all does not look anything like it does today. Over the years, several old brands would be reinstated, 5 to be exact. La Gloria Cubana was the first of these brands to be reinstated in 1965. The others are Caney, 1970, Habanos, there's that name again, Habanos. It just keeps popping up. I found that interesting how that keeps popping up in this history, even though I don't know how to directly connect it yet. La Corona and Belinda, all of those in 1989. You'll quickly note that history shows us the fate of reinstated brands is bleak. None survived. None but one. La Gloria Cubana. And that's very interesting. Now, you have 5 brands these are the 5 old brands that were reinstated. None of them made it. They're all gone now, except for La Gloria Cubana. That's pretty cool, I think. On top of that, like I just said, 25 brands, but the structure was very different. On top of the reinstated brands, a lot of new brands came along and were added. And also, of course, a lot of brands that made it through the revolution and were still there were removed. All in all, 15 brands were added. 10 of them were killed. La Gloria Cubana still made it. And, you know, that's really cool, especially when you look at it nowadays, because this is a brand, as good as it is, that is really hanging on by a thread. If not for the lifeblood being pumped into it by regional releases and stuff like that, and even then, I mean, it's scary. I mean, for me, because I don't know, I deeply love the brand. I really do. It was my first Cuban cigar. It was the first Cuban cigar I ever smoked, and they are among the best Cuban cigars I smoke again and again and again from all different years. But some of the brands: Cifuentes, Gispert, La Excepcion, Los Status Deluxe, Maria Guerrero, Troya, which that may be ICT, some machine-made stuff. Even it's so weird with that ICT machine-made stuff. Some of the vitolas, it's stated that it's unknown whether they're still in production or not. I mean, how do you not know whether you have a cigar in production? Right. Davidoff, La Flor del Caney, Dunhill, San Luis Rey, St. Louis Rey. 2 different brands, but not really. There's a story behind that. La Flor del Caney, La Corona, Guantanamera, Cabanas. Okay, so all of these brands just biting the dust. On a side note, we mentioned Belinda. Now, Belinda did try to come back again with a single machine-made cigar in a tubo, a Corona in a tube, produced under ICT, like I just mentioned, in 2005. I put it right here. Oddly enough, it's uncertain if it's still in production or not, but it is believed to be discontinued. So, you know, some of this information is like, what? Now, on a side note again, here's a really cool thing, because we're going to start talking about regional releases in a minute as we get further into La Gloria Cubana. Since we've mentioned, before we get back to LGC, since we've mentioned Belinda, and guys, collectors out there, people who would kill for another Cuban cigar brand, you heard it here first on the Dr. Joe Show. Kiss me when it's all over. Don't, but you know what I mean. Belinda, and this is a very, very weird thing. It's kind of like hush-hush. Belinda has a proposed regional release kickback, kind of like the La Excepción Selectos Finos, dead extinct brand, but hey, here's a regional edition of that old blend. Belinda is proposing, or Habanos SA is proposing a regional release for Belinda, and it is to be 2014 for Turkey, Turquina, regional edition Turquina, for a brand new Belinda vitola, another Cuban label, fucking awesome. Not much is known yet. It is proposed. Again, I say proposed, meaning it's not definite. Maybe it'll come out 2015, maybe they'll squash it all together. But it has been talked about, and the plan for it has been laid out right down to the vitola, and right down to the country that they want to release it for. So it's something that is very, very possible. It's proposed to be a Petit Edmundo shape, 52 by 4.3 inches, dubbed the Bosphorus, and will be available in boxes of 25, of which only 2,000 will be made. So they're cool. Hopefully they do it. Ooh, I wonder if they'll do it and then make a Belinda jar. Well, you know me, I will have to get it, but oh, you know what? I got to start a little newscast segment, because doing that and interrupting episodes, and don't worry, we will work on perfecting, never perfect, but perfecting the layout of the show. I want to start doing a news segment, because there's so much to talk about that I can't even get into about all sorts of different releases. But at least we got that out of the way, because that's very special. That's an extinct brand, except for a machine-made cigar that might still be in production, that is going to be proposed, going to be coming back as a regional release. So, back to LGC. LGC is resurrected, 1965. Over the 1970s, 5 of the 14 vitolas that we talked about are cut. 2 more drop in the 80s. The Cetros is killed in the 90s. In 2002, the Sabrosos is deleted. The MDO 1 and 3 are removed in 2010. And even the Taínos, which was being produced right up to 2012, is now discontinued. That leaves us with 2 and 2 vitolas only. The Medaille d'Or number 2 and the little number 4. So we're talking the Medaille d'Or number 2. I don't know, you know, every time I say it, I'm like, am I pronouncing that right? I love the brand so much, and I really, Medaille d'Or, Medaille d'Or, Dior, whatever. I'm American, I mean, I don't know, I try my best. But the number 2 is a great cigar to still have available, because it's a great vitola, you know? It's the Dahlias, which is almost a Churchill. It's close. But it's possibly La Gloria Cubana's most famous vitola they ever released, and that's probably why it's one they kept. Then they decided to keep the number 4, little small cigar, for whatever reason. I used to love the number 1s too. Really, really nice. But here's the thing. This series, why they call it the Medaille d'Or number 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like Cohiba and Cohiba Siglo. It's actually a different blend than, say, the Taínos. So when the Taínos was finally deleted from the La Gloria Cubana range in 2012, the original brand really is extinct. You know, people say, like I keep saying, it's hanging on by a thread, it's hanging on by a thread. Well, we still have this, but the original brand, the original blend, is no more. The only time we ever see it is with regional releases, you know, regional edition releases. Those are very much based on the original La Gloria Cubana blends. That's why I love the Taínos. And it's such a shame that it's very different. Let me tell you, the Taíno and this number 2, you know, different sizes, but both have some width, both have about the same length. So you have, you know, very, very similar sized cigars, you know, but very, very different. And to sit here and realize that, wow, I can't get a Taínos anymore. That whole thing is just gone. The whole range is just deleted. It saddens me. It really does. I remember when I first started with Cuban Cigars Online. And guys, I know you're probably watching. I love doing emails back and forth with people and having conversations. And sometimes I go crazy and send like a whole giant book to people on certain things. And the reason I like to do that is because it gives me so many ideas for content in my episodes. Anyway, we were talking about La Gloria Cubana and regional releases and all these things like that, and then it got into that conversation about the Medaille d'Or being the only thing left. And when I first started collecting, way back, the internet was flooded with boxes of old La Gloria Cubanas. I was smoking tons of these fucking things. Tons of them. You could get a 10-year-old box of Medaille d'Or number 2s for $300-400. Not much more than the going price for a brand new box now. You could get fucking 10-year-old Taínos for $150. Unbelievable. You know? There were Davidoffs by the dozen. Anniversarios, number 1s, all sorts of different, a little expensive, but nothing like you'd think. Not even as expensive as today's Grand Reserva cigars. That's how the conversation got started. And it got me thinking and saying, you know what happened, man, is not a lot of people were collecting. This was before all these, you know, or on the cusp of when these limitadas and regional editions started, and Grand Reservas and all these jars and collecting things. Nobody was collecting. Habanos were for cigar smokers, not for collectors, really, except for people who like to age cigars, and those are smokers. It's kind of a bad thing. You know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Some people probably hate what I'm doing because I'm letting people know that all this stuff is out here. And it's causing a real shortage, actually. It's already... We talk about what if the embargo was lifted in the States and what would happen. Back in one of our episodes, we got nice into that. Forget it, man. At the rate of people coming online and buying cigars all around the world, sites are running out of stuff, man. You know? First thing to go is all the aged cigars. All the sites you go to now, they all used to have aged Habanos sections. Now, hardly any of them do. And the ones that do, they have nothing left but a bunch of shit cigars from 2000 and a couple of boxes from, like, you know, 2008 they consider vintage. Whatever. 4 years. Anyway, long story short is, get him while you can, man. Get him while you can. You never know what the next crop is going to bring. If there's going to be enough, if the tobacco's going to be any good, get him while you can. With Gloria Cubana, that story right there proves that. Get him while you can. So, unfortunately, even though the MDO2 is still available, it's released in very small amounts and bought up right away by collectors. Mostly collectors. You know, because I meet very few people who smoke these fucking things. However, I run into a lot of people who are selling them. It's kind of funny, right? You know, fuck, man. You know, I'm about to spend a nice little chunk of change. And that was no offense to you, man, because if you're watching, I know you're a smoker and not just a collector, so you can let that statement fly. But there are a lot of people out there with fucking boxes of these things just hanging on to them because they know they're going to be worth money. Fuck the money. Smoke the fucking things. Or give them to me so I can smoke them. Jesus Christ. I'm about to put up almost 8 bills for... No, almost. 8 bills for a fucking box of MDO2s from 1998. I think it's worth it. I think it's fucking worth it. You know, but they're very hard to get, even brand new these days. So, they're released in very small batches. Maybe 2 months out of the year they're available. Maybe. And that gets less every year. Now, all this talk about dead and extinct vitolas and a dying La Gloria Cubana brand and all of that makes for a very depressing end to our brand history story. However, it doesn't end there. Thank God. And as a smoker and collector in a way of Habanos and a lover of the Gloria Cubana brand, I must give thanks to the esteemed regional edition series of Habanos cigars, because it is pretty much the only thing really keeping the Gloria Cubana brand alive. It also really helps generate interest from people who don't even really know about the Gloria Cubana brand. So thank you for that. And so now we are going to head into regional edition territory and talk about some of the regional releases in the Gloria Cubana line thus far. So, well, very quickly, we're almost into our last third. You know what? Let's wait a little bit. Let's wait a little. Even though it's getting closer to bands, it's not quite the last third. Speaking of bands, before we dive into the regional edition section, and you'll want to stick around because I have an announcement. The Gloria Cubana bands that are on these cigars, the MDO series, not on regional releases, are old-looking bands. I don't know why. Like most other brands out there, they just use they made a new band for regional releases, and they like Bolivar, for instance. They upgraded the band, and now Bolivar is using that band. It's using, Ramon Alones had an old, crappy-looking band, updated the band. Basically, it's the same band, except for better embossing, better coloring, better centering, better everything, and then they just put it onto the regular line cigars. Well, with Gloria Cubana, they never changed the band on the old cigars. Which means, at first glance, to the inexperienced Gloria Cubana, anybody who's inexperienced with the brand will say, oh, that's a fucking fake band. It's not. And that's the funniest thing about it. If you see MDOs with crisp, nice-looking bands and great embossing and everything, those are fake. You'll see up close when I take some shots with the camera. But it's a very old-style band. I don't know why they never changed it. And there are some differences between it, even though it's very similar to the one on the regional releases. For instance, this one says Habana. The regional releases say Habana-Cuba. Anyway, you'll see the band. Now, regional releases. In 2008, the first La Gloria Cubana regional release was issued, the Glorioso. And the name is very fitting because that was a glorious moment for me and for my favorite brand, because I was like, oh my god, yes, they're fucking coming back. Beautiful, beautiful release for the United Kingdom with a very special band that never appeared on any other release thus far. Not this band, and not the new band I was just talking about that's on most regional releases, but a very detailed, I don't know how to put it. It's almost like if you know Americans, not American, but Dominican, Americanized cigars, American market cigars, the Artesanos, the Gloria Cubana Artesano, it's similar to that. But this band, I don't know why they don't use it. Maybe it's too expensive to make, whatever. Maybe Hunters and Franco owns the imaging. It uses multi-tiered embossing, which makes the woman look 3D. But it's embossing, but all the different features are at different levels. So the hands and the arms are embossed further out than the head, so it gives it this really 3D look, and it would also be very difficult to counterfeit if you didn't have the exact replica of what is embossing this thing. So awesome bands on that, and it just, Hunters and Franco, of course, really well presented, well dressed, beautiful cigar, and it instantly brought back a lot of interest to the Gloria Cubana brand. Any MDOs, that were left in age sections of cigar websites after that release were fucking gone. Say goodnight, Max.